Thank you for calling the Bombas Comfort Line. Bombas make socks, slippers, tees, and underwear made with the highest quality materials. Press 1 for comfort, 2 for style, 3 for donation. You chose style. Bombas has styles for whatever you enjoy. You can run in Bombas, lounge in Bombas, dress them up, dress them down, but always give back in Bombas. Because with every item purchased, another is donated. Bombas, comfort worth calling for. Go to bombas.com/audio and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO.
You know, recommendations can be great. Maybe someone recommended this podcast and here you are. But home projects are different. If a podcast isn't your thing, you lose a few minutes. If you hire your cousin's neighbor to mount your TV, you might end up with a lopsided screen and wall damage. Maybe I know a guy just isn't enough for your home. That's why Thumbtack works. It matches you with top-rated local pros with photos, reviews, and credentials all in one place. For your next home project, try Thumbtack. Hire the right pro today.
Do you keep hearing podcast ads, like this one, for example, but always wonder how you actually get involved with them for your own brand or organization? Well, it's easier than you think. We're Acast, and we give you the platform to do it all yourself. Browse thousands of popular podcasts, choose the shows that match your perfect audience, set your budget, and launch. And if you want a hand, our podcast specialists are there to help you launch with confidence. This is podcast advertising without barriers. Get started at acast.com/advertise.
Welcome to Aran Island Discs, a podcast series where we talk to Irish people from different walks of life as they reflect on their own journeys. Join me, Russell McDermott, as we explore the many aspects of Irishness and what it means to each of our guests through life's ups and downs. Liz McManus, welcome to Aran Island Discs.
Thank you very much.
And my first question, as always, is, have you been to the islands?
Well, actually, I have. We lived in Galway before my children were born on the new docks in Galway City. So every morning we could see the Nevena, which was the boat that used to travel out to the Aran Islands. So I've been on all three of the islands. I have to say my favourite is Inishmaan. I think it's very special. And it doesn't have too many tourists, which is an attraction in the summertime. So it's a beautiful part of the country.
And you've seen it on bad days, or it's always been sunny and warm?
No, I've seen it on bad days, although the weather on the Aran Islands tends to be better than on the mainland. I have to say, Galway is very wet. When we arrived in October, it didn't seem to stop raining until April. And I had no job at the time, so it was quite a revelation. I can't remember Galway without rain.
And the Aran Islands, you remember it being a sunny day, clear blue water?
Well, yes. It's funny about islands. They're not the only islands I've visited, but there is something special about getting off the mainland.
Yeah.
And the clouds don't, when they hit the mountains in Connemara, that's when the rain comes down. So in a way, you're kind of in a blessed space when you're on an island. Aran Island, Rathlin Island, Clare Island, they're all something special about them.
Yeah, I was in Clare Island last year on a weather like this. It was super.
Fantastic.
Dolphins, you couldn't write about it.
Yeah.
Most times it's kind of windswept and bleak, I'd say.
Yes.
How do you describe yourself? Let's see, you're an ex-politician, academic now, a doctor of creative writing.
No, definitely not a doctor. I think that's nonsense. How do I describe myself? I'm a great-grandmother. I'm alive, which is kind of important at my age. I'm still discovering new things. I'm a bit bossy.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, I'm very bossy, which was helpful when I was a politician because, you'd be in Dáil Aran and I'd like to give people like Bertie Ahern a bit of my mind. And it certainly made me feel better.
Did Bartholomew listen, did he?
Well, he did, and then he'd give a reply that you hadn't a clue what he was saying.
And what did you do with the question?
Well, it was like Joe Higgins said once, it's like a ball into a bale of hay. It's gone in, but nothing comes back.
Yeah. And were you the oldest in your family? Or?
Oh, no, I was the youngest. I mean, I had two older sisters, and then about 4 years between me and the others. So they tended to be a group, and I was a bit on my own. So it was quite, and we moved around a huge amount.
And how did that affect you? Or did it?
Well, I think I was young enough for it not to affect me very much. I know my oldest sister.
But changing schools, changing
schools and losing friends.
Yeah.
But
and I did it 6-7 times by the age of 13. And I found it, on reflection, I knew no better. But in hindsight, it It was tricky. Every time you had friends,
That's
they moved,
right.
you moved, you start again.
Yeah.
In the playground, hello, my name is...
Absolutely. You don't actually come from anywhere, which can be an advantage. I remember I was talking to a group of travellers, women travellers in a resource centre, and I said, I really don't know where I come from. And they all nodded and said, oh yeah, we understand.
Yeah.
Slightly different circumstances.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of fluid, I hope in a good way, that it helps me to understand people who are very different from me. I mean, that's my desire, that I do understand difference, the other. And I think that background has helped.
And it does make you at ease in unusual situations, obviously. You've confronted that kind of change early on, yeah.
I think so. It makes you adapt. Well, I'm a great believer in benign neglect. And I notice this come back into fashion. They're saying, my children now, who all grew up in the 70s and 80s, that our parenting was rather different to the modern parenting, which is all, helicopter parenting. We kind of let them out in the morning and we, let them do things that are considered a wee bit dangerous. Well, I was the youngest. I was the one who never gave any trouble. But by
then your parents were probably relaxed because you're the last.
I think they'd given up.
Yeah.
I don't think they were relaxed.
I know
so
my
much
younger brother's the same.
Yeah.
By the time he came, not that they didn't care, it'd be rude, but they were very casual.
They'd given up. Well, even when I left college, I qualified, I would have been 21, 22. And because my husband at the time was working up in Letterkenny, I got a job in Derry. And Derry had gone up in smoke. It was the time of the Battle of the Bogside. And I arrived the week after it was over. And I lived in Free Derry, where there was no police, no soldiers, no nothing. The people managed themselves. But I often wondered, my parents never once said to me, do you think this is a good idea to be going into a war zone? I mean, I'm very glad they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't interfere.
Must have been very different.
Hugely.
Yeah.
But I worked in an architect's office, and it was a wonderful office. It was my first job. Architect called Liam McCormick, a very gifted man. He designed beautiful churches in Donegal, Burt, Creaslough, Glenties. I mean, jewels of architecture. And that was very satisfying to be working for him and working for his partners. I was kind of gormless, but I was living in the middle of the Bogside in a very working class community where people, if they had work. But the amazing thing was, I was hanging around with people like Emma McCann and Emma Cafferty and other people now, some of them who are dead, but they were all like me. They were university graduates. When I lived in Dublin, in my little parochial Dublin, I would never have met a working class graduate.
Yeah.
They were kind of most unusual, if ever. The exception to prove the rule.
Yeah. We
were solidly middle class. We could pay for our education. That's what we did.
And you grew up in Greystone, did you, Bray?
No. Oh, no, I never lived in Greystone.
No.
Greystone, you're mad. No, I can beat you in this. By the time I was 12, I lived in 9 different houses and 4 different countries. When I moved to Derry after I qualified, and then my partner at the time, my husband at the time, went to Galway. So I went with him, and we were married by that stage. And we lived in Galway, down on the docks. It was a marvellous place to live in the middle of, but it was before Galway is the Galway of today.
Yeah.
And it was a real university town. So there was a lot going on, but in a kind of subterranean kind of a way, Yeah. And then we moved to Ringsend, and then we moved to Bray,
right,
where I've been ever since.
It was Galway without the roundabout, does it?
Galway without the traffic or the roundabouts or the Ort. I mean, there was the Hive Yark, and there was lots of music in the pubs, and there was. I mean, I shouldn't be, but it was very different. There was none of this kind of, and I suppose it's buzz now. But then there was Nora Krubs, where you got crew beans after a rake of pints. There was that kind of. On Good Friday, where you got a pint because the drinking was ferocious. Not that I drank much, but just generally speaking, that was the culture. If you went into the railway station, the bar in the railway station was open for bona fide travellers. So it was packed with people, all with their ticket to Athenry.
One stop away.
Exactly. And there was nothing illegitimate about it.
Yeah. And the travel thing came because your father was board faulty, was that right?
No, he was a civil servant. we went, at least I didn't, I was born in Canada, but he went, and my two older sisters went to Canada because they were developing aviation. That was his big thing.
Was it?
And doing deals. In fact, he described being in a lift one day and the Americans had fallen out with the Russians, or somebody had fallen out with somebody, but the Americans were in the lift. And more or less he and other civil servants did the deal on Shannon.
Wow.
So this is where the American flights all came to. And it was the time of the
Cold War.
Flying boats.
Flying boats, yeah.
You know, so it was Rihanna actually at the time, and then Shannon. I was born in 1947. So they were there. I'll tell you where he was. He was, do you remember was it John A. Costello announced the Republic? He was at that, Dad was at that dinner when the Taoiseach got cross and announced, right, we're going to have a Republic.
Was it?
So things happened. And then we went to Italy, then we went to Switzerland, and then we went to Paris. And Dad was one of the people representing Ireland at the Marshall Plan talks. Because even though we were neutral, we still benefited. Now, I think the Marshall Plan was partly to make sure that Europe didn't go communist, but it was also because Britain, after the war, was in bits.
Yeah.
I mean, they were afraid of famine at one point. So a lot of the money that we got was for agricultural development, research, so that we could provide them with food, you know. Yeah. Terrible, terrible times.
And do you remember your time in France and Switzerland?
A very, very vague recollection of France, but I was only about 3 when we came to Dublin.
Right.
So but I spoke English and French.
Still?
And
You speak
no,
English?
I'm not very good at French, no, but I have a great accent. Just no vocabulary, you know.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
And did that affect the way you thought about being Irish and stuff, Liz, or made you more Irish, less Irish?
I did go through the more Irish phase when I was about 12. But after that, I think it doesn't lay heavily on me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very proud to be Irish. But the idea that we now have, you know, multicultural society, to me, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, we're getting the best of both worlds. I have to say, I find it quite depressing that the Irish flag has been abused so much. First of all, it was abused by the Provisional IRA until Jackie Charlton came along. And now it's been abused by the anti-immigrant people. And that is a great pity. And it means that you're kind of, you know, making presumptions when I am. When I see an Irish flag, and I have to check, no, it's not an anti-immigrant thing. It's really pathetic. These people who should know better, should know our history. My God, when you think of Irish people going across the world.
Yeah. Well, the Americans, up to recently, had a respect for their own flag.
Yeah.
Now it's used the wrong way.
That's
but
right.
Here, Jack Charlton made it
He did.
trendy.
He did.
And being abroad, I've been abroad. There was times when it wasn't trendy.
That's
until
for sure.
U2 came, River Dance and all
That's
these
right.
things in the 90s. And then being abroad, being Irish, even in the UK and London was acceptable.
Absolutely.
And now it's gone to the top.
Yeah.
Being Irish is cool.
It is cool. It is cool. But I think we have to question what it means. I have to say, I've had conversations with other politicians who sometimes surprise me. I won't name any of them. And there seems to be a move at the moment to grab Sinn Féin's clothes about United Ireland. And, you know, we'll have a United Ireland. And anyway, it's sort of being adopted by other parties in a way that I think could be quite dangerous. I think what we need is united Northern Ireland. Then we can talk about United Ireland. And I just worry a little bit, being Irish, does that mean that we kind of take over the North?
You bring people along. We don't own it, inverted commas.
Exactly.
And sometimes, I hear what you're saying. I've heard you talk about this before, and I would concur with your thinking.
Okay.
But sometimes you feel if you say that you're a bit off the middle, it's people that you should know, we have to have a United Ireland. That means X, Y, Z. It's not that formulaic.
Well, what do you do with those large community of people who are British, who give allegiance to the Crown? And actually, nobody ever has a satisfactory answer.
Yeah. But does your background, Unitarian, whatever, give you a broader mind in these things? Or
I think it's certainly, that was a huge thing for me when I was growing up. I mean, you have to remember that the 50s in Ireland were dominated by the Catholic Church, by Archbishop McQuaid in particular. It was a heavy burden for people who didn't fit in into that narrow, model. I had a Protestant mother.
I still dislike Trinity intrinsically because I went to UCD. I know you've been to 3 universities, but intrinsically you say Trinity, whatever, you know what I mean? Because that was built in. I got the tail end of that. Get over yourself.
You really should get over that.
I'm trying. But I hear what you're saying.
I know. We all have our bugbears.
But it was serious.
It was interesting that, I find it interesting. Sorry, my mother kept quiet about religion. My parents were extremely good at being tolerant. I learned a lot of tolerance from my father. I don't mean to just, he was very outward looking. He loved travelling the world, representing Ireland. He, one of the stories in this book that I've just released, Tiny Bruises, is about my father. But I always thought my mother was a Protestant. She didn't practice. She didn't go to church. And I always thought she was just, because all Protestants were conservative. And then I only discovered late in life that actually she was a Unitarian, and they are so liberal that that's why there was a big breakup between my mother and her mother, because her mother was a very liberal Unitarian, a dissenter, who was so liberal that my grandparents, that they didn't even have their children baptised. And when the Natemary decree, of course, applied, when my mother married a Catholic, and we all had to be reared as Catholics, my grandmother, who was a very kind of hot-tempered woman, went bonkers. And unfortunately, they never got over it. They never really talked to each other. So I never knew my grandparents. So that's why my previous book is written, The History of My Grandparents, or the story of my grandparents. And I just feel, how sad is that? Yeah.
But it must have in a way affected your thinking and underneath it all, your broad-mindedness or your social conscience.
It certainly made me think about this sort of proprietorial attitude that Catholics had then. They were the chosen people, in effect. And I didn't buy that. I recently joined the Unitarian Church in Dublin. I was taken by the fact that in their newsletter, one of their newsletters, there was an essay, how you can be an atheist and a Unitarian. I thought, that's sufficient for me.
I buy that, yeah.
Well, I'm not an atheist. I don't know, I like the idea of exploration, and that's what they do. And they have wonderful hymns. It's about love, tolerance, freedom, reason, all good things. And I suppose as I'm now nearing 80, I kind of, you become more philosophical. Yeah.
More relaxed about things.
Well, I never really, I shouldn't say that, but when I was about 14, I began to wonder about the Catholic religion. And once you start to wonder, it's all over,
They don't like you wondering.
Well, it certainly doesn't fit in with the plan, that's for sure. Now, I'm sure it's different now, and Pope Leo is doing great work and everything. Yeah. But old ideas are still there, particularly, since I spent a lot of my life in the women's movement. Yeah. The church is actually, I'll tell you a little story. I was in the Bray Women's Group, a local group of young mothers like me, all kind of banding together to stop ourselves going crazy and to do a bit of good. And we ended up setting up a refuge for battered women and a family planning clinic. And we kind of broke into 2 groups, and that was the end of the Bray Women's Group. But the refuge is still there. The family planning clinic obviously is not necessary anymore because of, access.
The law change, yeah.
But a local priest gave a sermon. And he wasn't attacking the family planning clinic. He was attacking the refuge. We were breaking up families. Isn't that gas?
That's reverse order, that is. Yeah.
So, there you go.
And then the whole, I know you are working at home, from the home. How did you get into politics? Was it Rory, the architect?
No,
in the office?
Not at all. I was in the Labour Party. I was in the Labour Party before in UCD.
UCD.
And then I went to Derry, and I was in the Derry Labour Party, which was, Trotskyist.
Active.
Revolution. And I thought, this is great.
That was, my God.
It was. And there was a lot going on. But I loved the idea that it was non-sectarian. One of the most militant people in the group was a fellow called John Throne, and he was Protestant from Strabane, But the idea that socialism working class struggle could transcend everything. Nationalism, sectarianism, that to me was what was attractive. That's what I wanted to fight for.
But you say you were kind of timid as young, were you?
I was desperately
So
shy.
how did that make that transition to speaking to people and making yourself heard?
I think when you become a fanatic, you actually you develop a lot of confidence.
Do you? You start, you go where nobody goes before, you don't care.
Exactly. Well, you know, when you have a strong message, I mean,
You're so focused on that.
You're so focused on that.
You don't worry about yourself kind of thing as well.
Exactly, yeah. And there was nothing wrong, you know, it wasn't a bad thing. I mean, I'm digressing now, but, you know, I was pro-choice and I got a certain amount of aggro over it from the anti-abortion people in my past. But I used to see the pro-lifers and sometimes come into my clinic to convert me and try and convince me. And I always thought, they're just idealists.
Yeah.
You know, if the world was like that, I'd be with them, you know, protect life. Yeah. But the world isn't that
Not
perfect.
That simple, yeah.
There's all sorts of problems that require us to think differently. So.
And do you enjoy public life in that sense?
Well, when I was in my 40s, my youngest was about 10. I'd been a local councillor for a long time. And there was really nobody else to stand as a candidate. We were a tiny party. It was the Democratic left. But I was ready for it as well. And I was very committed to the idea of women playing their part in, you know, the corridors of power. Yeah. Because there was so few women. Now, that time when I got elected, 21 women were elected. And it was treated like this is the women are taking over, you know. I mean, there was 166 seats in Dáil, Aran, but it was a bit of a breakthrough. But there were people ahead of us who had it tough, people like Nuala Fennell and Gemma Hussey and, you know, all these people. Monica Barnes was fantastic.
And who went in your intake?
Liz O'Donnell, Breda Moynihan. Well, some of them were returns like Monica Barnes, Frances Fitzgerald, you know, people who were mainly Fine Gael. But there were a few Fianna Fáils and Anya Kitt. I think she came in on that load.
And you look back on those days as a job you enjoyed.
I did. I mean, I was very...
I mean, it's huge sacrifice, huge invasion of privacy. It's a huge, lots of negatives, but obviously it gave you a huge sense of satisfaction.
We were both very committed, you know, to the whole project of the principles of democratic left, of women's rights, of civil rights, progress for working class people, poor people. I mean, that was all very real. I mean, I was very fortunate. My first sort of introduction into Dáil Éireann was when we were Democratic left. There was only 4 TDs at the time. Myself, Pat Rabbitt, Pontius Rossa, Eamon Gilmore, and Tony Heffernan was our press officer. And he was known as the 5th TD around Rocktas because he was so good. But these were very serious, committed, principled people. And I was, you know, I was very privileged to be in that group.
Thank you for calling the Bombas Comfort Line. Bombas make socks, slippers, tees, and underwear made with the highest quality materials. Press 1 for comfort, 2 for style, 3 for donation. You chose style. Bombas has styles for whatever you enjoy. You can run in Bombas, lounge in Bombas, dress them up, dress them down, but always give back in Bombas. Because with every item purchased, another is donated. Bombas, comfort worth calling for. Go to bombas.com/audio and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO.
While every other channel is fighting for your customers' attention, podcasts are where they've already given it. No one accidentally listens to a podcast for 45 minutes. They choose to be here. They trust the voice in their ears, and when that voice talks about your brand, it doesn't sound like advertising. It sounds like a recommendation from a friend. Acast gives you that trust at scale. Digital precision, host-read authenticity, and performance data that proves it worked. Don't fight for attention. Buy it with Acast. Learn more by visiting acast.com/advertise.
Do you never wonder why the left really didn't break into Irish politics? Is that true? We were always taught that in politics in UCD. It's a 2-party, 2.5-party system, and that half, nobody can decide whether it's going to be Sinn Féin now or Labour or left.
I know.
You never seem to get that 3-party system, left and right, like most European countries are.
I agree.
Is that because you didn't have an industrial revolution or what?
I think that's part of it. Also, I think that Fianna Fáil, particularly in the early days, stole our clothes.
Yeah.
And they became the, say, Socialist Party and did a lot of, things that people needed, like social housing.
Yeah.
And then it kind of went to the bad later on. I think there are lots of reasons. I think part of the problem is if you go into government, which we were committed to do, and rightly so, it's completely baffling. The smaller party always gets the blame. The Greens got the blame, the PDs got the blame, Labour Party got the blame. And the amazing thing after the crash, I had left 2011, but you could see that the Labour Party had a dilemma. Would we go in and make the tough decisions and protect as much as we could, which they did do very successfully?
Yeah.
Or do we stay on the sidelines and bitch about things? And we took the right decision. I think it's always important to, if you have the right kind of program to go in and, I was a Minister for Housing in the days when we built houses.
Built houses, yeah.
And in those days, that was 94 to 97, it was the Rainbow government, which was, I think, a very good government. Fine Gael, Labour and Democratic left. But building houses and social housing, that was kind of the norm. There wasn't any question about it. I wasn't doing anything major.
Yeah.
We built 6,000 social houses, I always remember, and 40,000 houses altogether. We still haven't got back to that 40,000.
Yeah.
Now, I know during the Celtic Tiger, things went absolutely barmy, which is not a good idea. But I do think local authorities are the key to a decent housing policy. And when Fianna Fáil came back in, they just really undermined the local authority role. And I think that's a great pity.
Yeah.
End of speech.
And they still think 30,000 might be a good number.
Exactly. Which is, I find amazing. But anyway, it's one of the great sort of failures of recent governments that we haven't been able to house our people.
Will politics today disillusion you then, when you're looking from the outside? Do you kind of get...
No. I think it's... When you get to my age, I don't know if you've seen the film One Battle After Another.
No.
Well, it was always like that, one battle after another. Somebody win. In the early days when I was for the revolution, and I haven't gone that far away from the revolution, but I'm certainly changed. But I do remember we were canvassing for Mary Robinson. And a woman who became my secretary subsequently had offered to do I was trying to get elected and she offered to do some typing. And we were very good friends. And when Mary Robinson came to Bray as part of the campaign, Anne took her children out of school to meet Mary Robinson. I said, why did you do that? And she said, because I want them to meet the next president. And I said, Anne, you must be joking. She's not going to make it. Because I was so used to failure,
Yeah.
So you just pick yourself up and keep going.
Yeah. People don't realise what a breakthrough was at the time.
Oh, no, it was amazing.
Now it's taken for granted. In those days, for Mary to get in and put the light in the window.
Absolutely.
I lived abroad, the whole story was just so magical.
It was magic. It was magic.
We couldn't see the lantern from there, but we knew it was there, you know what I mean? And the writing was always your thing, wasn't it? I didn't realise that.
Well, when I was at home with the children, I had a column in the Sunday Tribune, but it was just a light-hearted thing. But I did write, and I had my first novel published. But I was very lacking in confidence. And, if somebody said, oh, did you want to be a writer? I said, well, I wanted to write, but I didn't think that I was a writer. Yeah. And then when I got elected, there was very little time. But one of the great strengths I had was for the last 42 years, 35 years, I've been in a writing group set up by Van Boland. And we've met. Now, obviously, the numbers change and people come and go. But there's 4 of us, including myself, who are originators of the group. And we meet every month and have a workshop ever since then. And that has been a huge spur for me just to keep writing. And then when I retired, I went to the dreaded Trinity and did a master's. And, it's a funny thing.
And then
I wasn't infected
Limerick,
at all.
God.
And then I went to Limerick. Well, to tell you the truth, I was doing a PhD and Joe Connor was my tutor, one of my tutors. Yeah. And he lives in Ballybrack. I live in Bray. So we used to meet in Killiney Court. Yeah.
You see him Bray Beach or Dalkey Beach walking. I didn't realise you're a professor.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Joe. Sorry, I apologise.
No. Joseph, by the way.
Joseph.
I know he was great. He was great. And Tino O'Toole was my other because there are 2 parts to a PhD.
But how does somebody who says they don't have confidence sit there while somebody goes through their work and talks it through?
Oh, well, I did have confidence by that stage.
Okay.
I mean, I think it helped enormously going to Trinity.
Okay.
Because it was a complete break. 1 minute I was a TD, then we had summer, then I started in Trinity in the autumn. Mm. And to be back in a university setting, there was only about 24 of us doing the Masters in Creative Writing, but most of them were actually American young people. There was about 4 wrinklies like me. And it was just so inspiring. Mm. Gerard Dáil was was the professor then, poor man is dead now. He was great. And we'd Richard Ford as a visiting writer, these big names. But it meant that you were just in that milieu all the time. Mm. And people were encouraging. I got a book out of it, Shadow in the Yard, and never looked back. I'm being a better writer now than I ever was.
Oh, people say that you always get better. Yeah. And every time you write a book, you can't believe that what you wrote the first time was actually accepted. You
Exactly.
It's like re-editing yourself.
Then you go gaga and you write a book and it's rubbish.
You think it's rubbish?
No, you think it's wonderful. I don't know. Listen, I'm not going to go gaga.
Yeah. And your recent book, Tiny Bruises, tell us about that.
Tiny Bruises was inspired by the fact that I had lived through radical change in Ireland. Mm. I didn't, obviously, I was born in 47, but the 50s onwards were very real. And the earlier years, I kind of read a bit about, researched a bit. But the idea was that for the whole period of independence and partition, the change that occurred could be told in a fictional way. So each decade, there is one story, different person, it's their testimony. It's all fictional, but all of it could have happened, and some of it did. So some of it rises out of it. Like, for example, the first Soviet in Ireland did happen in the lunatic asylum in Monaghan.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the setting for the first story. And there's a kind of a love affair between Maud Gonne's daughter, Iseult, and a German spy. And he certainly did come to Larry Castle and stayed there. Whether they actually got together,
you're not sure.
Read the book. But I just wanted to trace that. And actually, Michael D. Higgins did a wonderful foreword for it. I was very grateful because part of my inspiration was the fact that he had done this series of academic discussions called Machnamh, which was about trying to recall people's stories, people who would never appear in a history book. They weren't heroes, they weren't leaders, they weren't, nothing. They were just ordinary people, which I hate that term, but they were people whose stories needed to be told. So I hope I told their stories. And it ends with COVID.
And resilience, is that something that's natural to you? Do you think it's a thing? Have you been tested and had to...
I think having a family makes you resilient. And 3 boys and one daughter.
3 boys, again.
I used to say, going into Dáil Éireann was a doddle. After all that.
You'd run into work.
I was at home when the children were small, and I don't regret it, but it was a kind of a war zone kind of atmosphere to it sometimes. But they were very good. I mean, fortunately, I can't remember a lot of what my children did. In fact, one son got married and the other son was his best man. And the best man told all these stories about their childhood. I never heard any of it. The time I dropped a brick on my brother's head, what? But anyway, resilience. I think I'm resilient, yes. But I think when I did my clinics, I was a great believer in clientelism, great believer in doing clinics. I went around Wicklow. It was like representing Ireland in microcosm. Rural, urban, the ghetto, sea, mountains, everything. And particularly in rural areas, I think there's something about being poor in a rural area is tougher, I think, than being poor in an urban area. Now, I know it's generalisation, but somehow you're more isolated.
What's that to do with access to things and just isolation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even in sort of villages and that, but I would come across people, mainly women, and the strength they had to deal with conditions and situations that were insufferable in many ways. That, to me, was real resilience. I mean, I remember even at the height of the Celtic Tiger, You know, when you had 3 cars outside the door, if you were canvassing. Canvassing was a great place for insight. The only people that I could see who got nothing out of the Celtic Tiger were the parents of children with autism. They were just not considered. And those kind of stories fed into my politics in a way that was invaluable. I mean, I could not have functioned as a TD without having that close link with my constituents. And I'm very grateful. I mean, what they gave me was a gift.
And where did you get that interest in society, people, social issues? Has that come down the family line? Or
I don't know. I wrote the book about my grandparents, which is called When Things Come to Light, and still in print. They were Unitarians. They came from the north.
Yeah.
They were both very strong nationalists. They wanted independence for Ireland. And then they got independence, and it turned out not to be what they expected, because they expected it to be a tolerant society. And it became a very, theistic society. And eventually they left, which was a great pity. But I think Unitarianism probably...
You're a pro at running your life, at committing to your workout, at showing up every day. At Bombas, we're pros too. Pros at making socks. Our sport assortment has specialized socks for whatever sport you're committed to. Running, hiking, golf, Pilates, and so much more. Made with sweat-wicking yarns, blister-fighting details, and targeted arch support. Bombas Sport is pro-level socks from the pros of socks. For another pro, you. Go to bombas.com/audio and use code audio for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com and use code audio.
Quick question. When was the last time a display ad changed your mind? Now think about the last time a friend told you about something they loved. Different feeling, right? That's how podcast advertising works. A host who's built real trust with their audience talks about your brand in their own words, in their own voice. It doesn't interrupt the experience. It's part of it. With Acast, you can access the world's largest podcast marketplace. Choose the right shows, the right audiences, the right format. Then watch the data tell you it worked. You're not buying impressions. You're buying influence. Learn more by visiting acast.com/advertise.
And maybe, I don't know, my other grandparents came from Cork, Catholic family, but I suspect that the Unitarian principles fed into my politics, even indirectly. My father had total disdain for politicians. Equally. I mean, he was because he was a senior civil servant, he'd seen them all,
He knew the tricks.
He knew the landscape. So it certainly wasn't for my parents.
Yeah.
But I think it was also that, becoming a teenager in the 60s, I mean, the first thing, the music's very important to me. The first time I really had my mind blown by music was my sister, the boyfriend. He used to lend her records. She wasn't interested, but I'd play them. Black blues singers. And, then it was Bob Dylan and all these things, and the civil rights movement in America. Yeah. How could you not be affected by that?
Yeah.
It was powerful, powerful impact.
And what songs do you remember from Dylan?
Well, the first LP I bought was actually...
And people say certain songs cross their life at a certain age and that changed them or something. You remember the first songs?
Well, I remember, yes. The first Bob Dylan album was called Bob Dylan. It was mainly songs he'd taken from traditional ones. He had a song for Woody. He had something about going to New York, which he'd written himself. But other than that, he had I'm a Man of Constant Sorrow and There Is a House in New Orleans, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was, but John Lee Hooker sang When My First Wife Left Me. Desperately, powerful, sad. But I always thought, when my first wife left me.
Is a life after that?
Yeah. I thought she was all happy ever after, I was kind of innocent.
Well, Bob Dylan says now he's not, in the first albums, he's not sure where those lyrics ever came from. He said he couldn't write them now. It just shows you where he was in his life and the things. Your mind is rushing and words come to you. Yeah. I've seen him written down. He said he doesn't know where they came from, how he came. They just came.
Is that right? Yeah.
So it's amazing. There's a time and a place in everybody's life where these things just...
Well, they were very political, and he certainly
But he's very socially aware in his own way.
Yeah, but it certainly changed a lot. And he's tried an awful lot of things. I mean, you know, country music, everything.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. But the periods in your life when things happen, you're not sure why they happen. And you never thought about it. Just happens.
The muse is a mystery.
It is. And that's what you have.
I think so. But then you're always wondering, well, have I lost it now? Has she gone away?
So you're disciplined about your writing, eh?
Not.
You wake up and do something one day and none the next.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Like some authors are just up at 6 a.m, they do 2 hours whether something comes or something doesn't. You're not like that.
I was disciplined doing my PhD, which is what was, you know, this book came out of that PhD, and so did another book I wrote about a forgotten poet called May Morton. And that was discipline. But I do remember when I wrote one of the stories and then I couldn't get going in the next one. And I met Joseph O'Connor and he said, what are you working on now? And I said, I'm completely dry. Nothing's going. And it was in the springtime. And he said, look, you're to give up writing for Lent. So I did.
Yeah.
And now Lent went on quite longer than I expected. But then I got going again. I mean, it does. There's no rhyme, no reason to any of it. And
does the passing of time, and you keep telling us your age, does that give you more freedom? You're not bound, or you have
for sure.
Not that you have no obligations, but you just
I'm free to make choices. Yeah. I mean, having a family, having a busy job. Now, when you're older, if you have a good health and if you have steady income, you know that they're the two key things that you depend on. But certainly, yes, there's great freedom in it. One thing I do believe, and I would like to say, and I preach this all the time, that I think it's important to write your story. Now, let me tell you, because, you know, we're all going to die. I think not your children won't care, but your grandchildren, in fact, they won't care at all. But your great-grandchildren will love to read. And it doesn't have to be well written. It doesn't have to, you know, be well spelt or anything. I'm not talking about publishing. I'm talking about just telling your story and leaving it behind. I think it's one of the great gifts you can give.
I've heard you say one of your regrets is you didn't have a diary.
Oh, listen, I was such an idiot.
But that seems counterintuitive given that you're a writer, in a way.
I know.
It's strange, yeah. I would have thought that was the first way you practice, just doing notes and at the end of every day.
I think when I was a TD, I had other priorities. Yeah. Writing was not a priority. Except writing speeches, but that's different, you know. And when I was a minister, I mean, I trained as an architect, but it was a pretty awful architect.
And how many years did you work as an architect?
When I was 2, 4, 5, 6, probably about 6 years.
Right.
And then the crash came. It was actually longer. The crash came in the 80s. Hallelujah. And the poor people I was working for were on the dole. And I thought, this is it now. I don't have to do this anymore.
You didn't miss it?
Oh, God, no. I felt I was a total charlatan. Which I was, you know.
But you're ahead of your time then. You went to college, you found a profession. No?
Yeah, there were very few girls in my class. There was about 40 boys, 40 in the class and about 7 girls, if that. Now, of course, girls are everywhere. It's wonderful. It does my heart good to see.
If somebody wanted to go to politics tomorrow, would you recommend it?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like it hasn't coloured your judgment or fatigued you?
A job in politics?
Yeah. Doing what you did, would you reckon?
Oh, I think
I have canvassed for some people now in the safety of Blackrock, and I found it. Now, I did it for Morris Manning in Coolock many years ago as a student in 81, 82. He was in here saying, we had no idea he was from Foxrock, going out to Dáil in the middle of the hunger strike in 81, talking about Fine Gael. Can you imagine? Only if he gave his pints in the old shieling, we wouldn't have done it. I mean, the naivety of doing that. Like, hello? So going to politics to me is like, it's sadomasochism of some kind. It's just crazy.
It's actually opens up your... I mean, would he ever have had that experience if he, you know?
No. Yeah, well, it's a good one about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you survive most things.
Yeah, but going for lecturing about what politics is about, him and Tom Garvin pontificating, going out to real life, trying to get a vote. And I've done with Cormac Lucy recently, locally.
Oh,
and the door, if it opens, you're not sure what you're going to get.
I know.
So to choose that as a way of life.
No, it has got rougher. And people go on about social media. I'm always amazed. Why do you
the cameras on the doors, they know who's there. It's
That's
like,
right.
Goodbye. Please have a nice day.
That's right.
So how do you just want to go in that as a career now and say hello?
The other big change to me is how many houses, they're not answering the door. The car isn't there, they're out.
Yeah.
Shopping at 8 o'clock at night or, things that used
just
to
not
happen.
available.
Not available to you.
Yeah.
But it's a good, I think it's a great job. And it's an important job.
It is important, isn't it?
And it's important with good people. When you look at what's happening in America, you just think...
The worry is my two daughters, younger people, they're not engaged at all. And they don't get information other than their social media platform, which is not information, but they have no grow, compunction,
That's right.
social awareness. Like in some countries, if you don't vote, you get fined.
Yeah.
Here, we don't vote and nobody tells you anything.
Yeah.
And that's the worry I would have. Polls are lower and lower.
I think what happens is when people start to have children, when they get into their 30s, they tend to start taking interest then.
Yeah.
So I think that's always been the case. Now, obviously, in the 60s in UCD or anywhere, there was so much going on in 68 that you couldn't but be interested in politics. I'm not sure we were any better educated about politics. I mean, we just had very strong views. But
you're passionate. You converted your feelings into kind of action of some kind.
Exactly.
Nowadays, people don't seem to have that same compunction, which I find as a politics student quite depressing.
Except if you're on the far right. And then you're very passionate, unfortunately.
And then the message is distorted.
Yeah.
So if there's one song that comes to you, is there one song you turn to? Or?
I think the times they are changing. Yeah. As far as music, I love Martin Hayes and Dennis Cahill. I'm so old-fashioned. I still have CDs,
They come back into fashion again. Relax.
The trouble is, I can't. I have no CD player in my car now. I'm very cross about it.
They don't come anymore.
You
have to have Bluetooth and the Apple player.
My lips are sealed. But certainly I love music. I love all kinds of music, and I always have. Been very important to me. And I'm very eclectic. I mean, I like opera, I like trad, I like, Van Morrison, I like jazz, whatever's going.
Is that Hilary Mantel quote your go-to quote, is it?
No, my go-to quote is, well, actually, the Hilary Mantel I like. It says, if you want to know what happened, read a history book. If you want to know what it felt like, read a novel. It's a bit like, those who win the struggle write the history, but those who suffer are the ones, those who struggle are the ones who write the songs. No, my favourite is my dear friend Mary Rose Callahan, a fellow writer, and she's seen a certain amount of bad things in her life. She's a widow, and she says, and I like it, life goes on because it has to.
There's no truer word, is there?
When you're dead, nothing changes, nothing stops.
Yeah. And does that word, I've heard you say elsewhere, that doesn't scare you? The DAATH word, no?
I think when I had grandchildren, it definitely helped because you felt the line was secure.
Yeah, okay.
Of course I don't want to die. I mean,
nobody does.
But I do dwell on it in the sense that I'm interested in the whole idea of death, but not necessarily my death.
It's that kind of Irish, kind of morbid. We have a thing about death, mourning, or there's something. We celebrate death in a different way than other countries in Europe, for example. Like in Spain, you're buried within the day. I mean, it's like Arabic.
That's
It's all over, and you go home and have a cup of tea. They can't understand the Irish ritual.
That's right.
Go over 2, maybe 3 days if people have to travel from abroad.
Yes.
So we do have a ritual about it, which is nice.
We do. And they're becoming quite elaborate now in terms of the wake. And I think India funerals tend to be kind of celebrations as well. But I like the idea of celebrating. I mean, I want a wake in the house. I want the wine to be flowing.
Yeah, you leave the wine ready, will you?
I leave money for them to buy. Geez, the least they could do.
Yeah. And the 4 countries you lived in was Canada, Switzerland?
Well, no, Canada, Switzerland, France. But then when I was about 8, We went to the Netherlands.
Netherlands.
I thought we were there for longer, but my sister says we were less than a year there.
Mm.
My dad was a diplomat, but he was a very undiplomatic person. And it didn't suit him at all. So then he went for the job as head of portfolio.
All right.
And that suited him.
Was he ambassador level?
What they called it was minister.
Oh, minister.
Certain countries only had ministers.
So he lived in Amsterdam, or no, he lived in The Hague.
In The Hague.
That's right. The Hague.
Yeah.
It's a bleak place, isn't it? It's a bit serious.
He liked it. I mean,
I like Dutch people, but they're straight to the point. I mean, they don't beat around the bush.
That's right. They're unadorned. But we were there for winter, and there was skating on the canals. Apparently,
that's not possible anymore.
Apparently,
it's very rare that what they call the elf canals, where it actually works because this never gets cold enough.
Exactly, it's shocking.
And your man in the States will tell you there's no such thing as global warming. How would you look at him if you had to meet him without saying anything?
I keep thinking that he's a 4-year-old boy. You know,
he should be in play school.
He should be in play school, exactly.
It's tough, isn't it? To see and believe.
I mean, when I saw poor Micheál Martin having to, I just thought, surely there's some way. And in fact, funny enough, Enda Kenny dealt with them very well the last time he was out there.
Yeah.
And Enda gave, when he was there for sympathetic.
But he was a slightly different animal then. He was kind of contained. He wasn't as outside the box.
No, he wasn't. That's true. He wasn't as mad as he is now. But Enda Kenny made a very good speech about immigration.
Yeah.
And it was really saying everything without saying anything that would upset.
Absolutely.
And I thought it was really clever. And that's really what you have to do. You have to use political language in a productive way.
Mm.
And it is part. I mean, there are lots of people who write very good speeches. I was just looking on Facebook at one of these reads, Lyndon Johnson's, We Shall Overcome speech.
Yeah.
I mean, it is brilliant. Yeah. And apparently there was...
For him to have said it as well, it's kind of...
He was an amazing president. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. We kind of got a twisted version because he came after John F. Kennedy and stuff.
Oh, she was much better than him.
Yeah. And he got things done. We forget that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And he pulled every trick. He
tricks.
Sold off the trade union movement. He did this, he did that in order to get the civil rights legislation. A remarkable politician.
When you look back, Liz, on your life, are you surprised what you've achieved or how you ended up or how it worked out? Or was this all part of your plan?
I had no plan. No, seriously, I mean, I was certainly an accidental TD. I operate by instinct. I don't have a plan very much. I mean, I obviously plan to live as long as I can, but instinct in how I dealt with people and instinct in what issues I took up. But I don't see myself as somebody who worked it all out beforehand. I mean, I ended up taking the two most unpopular issues. One was travellers and the other was abortion, neither of which I had actually thought about very much beforehand. But in the process of, I chaired a commission on travellers, essentially because nobody else would do it when I was in the Dáil. And, it's really good because there were travellers on the commission, they were settled, there was public representatives. Everybody had to hear things that they didn't particularly want to hear. But it was really good. And the thing I learned most, because there were civil servants working on it as well, that civil servants are obsessed with promotion.
That was a card, was it?
Well, it was just interesting, I tell you. I mean, I learned a lot about travellers and we made progress. Yeah. But this was also a parallel river that I was kind of aware of.
Yeah, but you're an optimist, really, aren't you?
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
I am. But then when I see Trump, my heart sinks. The damage he's done. I mean, I had this naive idea. That's one thing that I have changed. That politics was on a continual progressive course. Mayor Robinson was the great. Even Albert Reynolds, because he started the peace process. The things were getting better. And in fact, that is completely wiped out of my head now.
On that note.
Thank you, Donald.
On that note, we wish him well. Liz McManus, thank you so much for joining us today on Aran and Discs.
Quick question. When was the last time a display ad changed your mind? Now think about the last time a friend told you about something they loved. Different feeling, right? That's how podcast advertising works. A host who's built real trust with their audience talks about your brand in their own words, in their own voice. It doesn't interrupt the experience. It's part of it. With Acast, you can access the world's largest podcast marketplace. Choose the right shows, the right audiences, the right format. Then watch the data tell you it worked. You're not buying impressions. You're buying influence. Learn more by visiting acast.com/advertise.